So, Rabbi, 2 weeks ago, we talked about conflict. We talked about agreeing to disagree. And we talked about that agreeing to disagree means nobody walks away happy. You're agreeing to disagree, but you feel like I didn't really get what I wanted. The other person didn't really get what they wanted. And we decided that the whole group, everybody decided agreeing to disagree just is not working for us, that we want to disagree. So the question was, well, what do you do if you're going to disagree? Oh my gosh, that's going to be the end of my relationship. That's going to be the end of my love life. If I disagree with the person that I'm living with, or I disagree with my parents, or I disagree with my best friend, it's over. I will lose my parents' respect. My best friend will never talk to me again. My lover will leave me. And there's no way that I can disagree. What do I do? What do I do? So usually, we could talk about flight, but what happens? You can run away from it, right? You could say, I'm not going to fight with anybody, and I'm just going to run away. It's flee or flight. I will fight. Either I'm going to fight it out, and it'll probably be a disaster, or I'll just run away. I'll hide. And most of us really choose to flee. Most of us are very afraid of the fight. It's very normal. Rarely are people ready for a fight. But who is the person that's ready to fight? Usually, the person that's ready to fight is, why are they ready to fight? Because they think that they are right. There's no doubt in their mind, I am right. Your opinion is wrong. My opinion is right. And that kind of a person usually is, for lack of a better word, is a very arrogant, narcissistic person. So that person who is ready to fight and say, I'm fighting it out, I'm right, I think that the air conditioning should be on 50 degrees, I think the heat should be on 100 degrees. That person is ready to fight. That is a person who is very arrogant and only thinks that they're the ones that are correct, that nobody else has an opinion. So what do we do? What do we do about that kind of a person? So I would like to say that I think conflict is more about an opportunity, about getting closer to somebody. Conflict is not about breaking up. Conflict is not about the arrogant person who gets very angry and is going to win. It's not about letting that person win, okay? That person who loses their temper, they are not smarter than you are. They're just tougher, and they're really just arrogant. Arrogance leads to anger. And it's not about them being smarter. It's not. Because you can have a doctor who is a cardiologist. I just actually happened to me this weekend. I have somebody I know that's a cardiologist, and you would think that if they're a cardiologist, right, that they would monitor what they eat, they would monitor what they consume. But yet here I am, I'm watching this cardiologist who tries to protect people's hearts, tries to she knows or he knows that you have to eat carefully in order to protect your heart. But yet, what are they doing? They're eating this fattening stuff. They're eating everything that's wrong. They're eating very, very unhealthy food. Now, does that mean that they're a smart person? No, they're not smart. They're just arrogant and narcissistic, and they think that nothing is going to happen to them and that they're going to be okay. So very, very often, the person who yells the loudest, the person who gets the angriest, we all run away and we give in to them. But why are we really giving in to them? Because we're afraid of them. We're afraid of their anger. They're going to get so angry, and we're terrified. So we would rather choose to flee. I would rather run away from this person, agree with them, or what about the cardiologist that smokes? But how many cardiologists do we know that smoke cigarettes? They know not to smoke cigarettes, but they smoke cigarettes anyway. Does that mean that they're smart? That means that they're not in touch with reality. So for me, it's really very important not to, I don't think that it's a good idea to give in to this person, especially if you live with them, and very often we live with these very, very tough people. I think conflict is an opportunity for a relationship. Conflict is an opportunity. And if you don't use the opportunity, you lose the opportunity. So what do you do? How do you engage a person in a conflict? What are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to raise your voice? No, that's not going to help. Are you going to scream louder than the person? No, that's not going to help. So very important is, number one, if you live with this person, take a deep breath, pause, calm down. Don't mirror their reaction. Hold on, take a deep breath, and just hang on. And I like to think of this, if it's possible for you, as an opportunity to ask questions. It's referred to as compassionate curiosity. You ask them after you've calmed down, because the easiest thing to do is that when somebody screams at you, what are you going to do? You're going to scream louder at them. Don't. You're not going to win. You're better off just pausing, relax, take it easy. They're not going to relax, the other person. They're going to stand their ground because that's their personality. But what can you do? You can relax, and you can use compassionate curiosity. You can ask them very respectfully, so tell me what's going on for you. Tell me what is going on? What is it that's going on for you? Not yell back at them and say, what is wrong with you? Why are you screaming like that? You sound like a maniac. You sound like a crazy person. What's wrong with you? Doing that is just going to lock you into a relationship where you're going to scream, they're going to scream. They're not going to hear you, and you're not going to hear them, because both of you are screaming so loudly that you don't hear each other. So the most important thing is that one person, and that's you are the person, because you are here in the class, you are the person. Relax, breathe, take it easy. I have to tell you a very funny story that most of you do not know. There's 4 people here that do know the story because they were at the story. Rabbi Katzin, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to tell the story about how you dealt with last week. Last week, we did not have our Monday night class. And instead of our Monday night class, we had scheduled, but mostly everybody didn't know about it, so don't feel bad. We had scheduled a Sunday night class, but only 4 people showed up to our Sunday night class because it wasn't our usual Monday night class. So those 4 people were Julia, Diana, Jaylene, a new person that we just met from Washington, which we're so excited about. I'm looking forward to seeing Jaylene again. And somebody else was also there.
Diana?
Which one? Deanna, Julia, Jaylene, and Julia, who is the other person?
Natalie?
Steffi.
Steffi.
Okay, so we're in this
How can we forget Steffi?
We're
Shame
in
on
this
us.
class, and Rabbi Katzin poses the idea of us having, since there's only 4 of us there, having an intimate conversation, and that he's going to step away because it's going to be an intimate girls' conversation. Correct, Rabbi Katzin? And he was going to step away. But we all said, no, no, no. We need the rabbi over there at the conversation. And the rabbi said, fine, I will stay. As we're having this extremely intimate female conversation, I'm not going to say what the topic was exactly, but it was an intimate conversation, very, very intimate. We're having this conversation, and suddenly 3 names appear in our class. Rocco, Doug, and what was the other name?
Andrew.
And Andrew. Now, these were names that were not familiar. And Rocco comes on to the class. Rocco clearly was not one of our rage students. I'm not going to go into detail.
I asked him to introduce himself.
You said.
Sure, because
Yeah,
I don't know who's coming.
Now that was the interesting thing. Really, I'm going to be honest over here. This was clearly a conflict. Here was this guy that showed up in a class with 4 women, and I was ready for a fight. I wanted to say, what are you doing here? Why are you in this class? Get out. That was going to be my reaction. Either I was going to fight or I was going to flee, which meant I was going to run away, which really is what I wanted to do. But I froze. I totally froze. I was like, who is this? Now, Rabbi Katzin, an expert at conflict, because this person did not belong in this class. And I don't know who that is. We're not reliving the same thing again, Rabbi, are we?
Guy, how are you? You want to introduce yourself? Okay, yeah, Dr. Faye, continue meanwhile.
Yeah. And what Rabbi Katzin did was really a lesson in conflict resolution. What Rabbi Katzin did was exactly what he just did right now with Guy. He said, hi, who are you? Do you want to introduce yourself? It was compassionate curiosity. That's called compassionate curiosity. Hi, who are you? And I was just like amazed that Rabbi Katzin, in that moment of heat that I was feeling, that I was ready to yell at this person, really, I was ready to lose it and say, what are you doing here? Because when the person came on, not only did they come on quietly, but they came on and they said something that was inappropriate to the women that were there. And I was going to say, how inappropriate of you. What's the matter with you? Who are you? Go away. But Rabbi Katzin stepped in immediately, and with his compassionate curiosity, he said, hi, do you want to introduce yourself? And with that, do you want to introduce yourself? Where are you from? They felt very, very uncomfortable. They didn't feel attacked, but they felt so uncomfortable that they just disappeared. And I think that really is very key, that if there is somebody who's going to conflict with you and come up against you in a very, very strong way, the best thing to do is pause, take a deep breath, and then ask them a very normal question, wherein they may actually they may leave, which they did, Rabbi. So I really have to congratulate you on that. So I think that for our purposes over here, it's very important that when somebody comes against you, not to become defensive. Because if you're going to become defensive, it's not going to happen. People want to be heard. They want to be recognized. These three guys, they were recognized. Rabbi Katzin recognized them as people. And I think that when you respect somebody, rather than attacking them, and you actually listen to them. And also another thing he did that I think is a very important thing in terms of conflict resolution. I would have said, I'm being very honest here, I'm being very open. I would have said, what's the matter with you? What are you doing over here? Attacking them. And instead, Rabbi Katzin didn't use the word you. He didn't say, you are entering our territory. You are trespassing on our class. He said, I'm interested in knowing who you are. And it wasn't about attacking them. That Rabbi Katzin, that is huge. And I want to also say that when it comes to conflict, it's very easy to deal with conflict with somebody that is not close to you, with a stranger. It's easy. It's very difficult to deal with conflict with somebody that you love, because somebody that you're very close to, you get more compassionate about arguing with them. You feel that when they're arguing with you, that you're taking it it's a very personal attack on you. And it's so recognize that also. Recognize that when you have a conflict, recognize that when you have a conflict with somebody that's close to you, it feels more offensive because it feels more like they are attacking your own person. So I think that's also a very important thing to know. Another important thing to recognize is that usually before a person gets angry and attacks you, if you're paying attention to them, you will notice their body language. You'll notice that they're going to attack you. I work with victims of domestic violence. I work with women that are victims of domestic violence. And all of them will say, I knew that he was going to attack me before he attacked me. So generally, when we're living with somebody and we're very close to them, we know that they're going to get angry. And I think that it's at that moment that you take a deep breath and you try to be respectful and say, I see that you're getting very angry. Do you want to talk about it? I want to mention another thing, and then I'll bring all of them together. Very often, people may not even realize that what they're doing, believe it or not, they may not even realize that what they're doing is something that will hurt you. As an example, if somebody walks into if somebody walks home into your house and you're busy in the kitchen or you're busy doing something and you don't run to the door to say hi to them, you're not doing this because you're angry at them, but they may get angry that you haven't greeted them at the door. How would you know unless they tell you, I really feel bad that you didn't greet me at the door. So I think it's the opportunity in conflict to have a conversation is very important. I think that holding out on a resentment and holding it in and saying, oh, I'm not going to tell the person that I'm angry, I'm going to hold it in. I don't think that that is the way to go, because resentments end up building up. And then what ends up happening is that when you're in the conflict, you end up bringing something up that happened 2 months ago. And it's not only now that I'm angry at you and that you're hurting me and that I'm offended, but do you remember 2 months ago, you did the same thing, but you didn't tell them 2 months ago that you were upset with them. So how are they supposed to know? So I'm a very big believer in not holding on to something and not holding on to a resentment, but telling it to the person in a way that is respectful, in a way that is a conversation, and not bringing up past conflicts. I also think that the conflicts usually fade away. A lot of it has to do with timing. If you're in a stressful time where it's the time of the month that you need to pay your rent, it's your time of the month that you're going to get your period. Generally, things that will bother you during a certain time, at another time, they may not bother you. So very often, it's, you might want to just talk it out in a way that is time sensitive and say, I know that you're upset now, or I know that I'm very upset now, but can we talk about it a little bit later when I calm down? Because talking about things in the moment when you're going to lose it is a very dangerous thing to do, because you're going to say things that you are going to regret afterwards. I feel bad, talking about conflict resolution, because I know for all of us, conflict is very, very, very difficult. But I think also that if you get through the conflict and you talk it through instead of ignoring it and making believe that nothing really happened, the conflict will only make you become closer to the other person. And this happens to me very, very often. As a matter of fact, I have somebody actually who's on the class right now, and there was something that happened between us, and the person would have preferred not to talk about it. And because I think conflict resolution really brings you closer together, I insisted, let's talk about it, let's discuss it, let's not leave it alone. And the truth is that because we talked about it, that gave us an opening to our relationship that drew us closer together, not further apart, because it wasn't a disrespectful conversation. I expressed my opinion, they expressed their opinion. And if that's done in a way that is respectful, you really end up getting to a much better place in your relationship. All right, so let's go over a couple of things that we just said. When there's a conflict, you have to look at this as an opportunity to make your relationship better. Running away from a conflict is not a great idea. It's better to have a conversation. But having the conversation means that you're going to be respectful of the other person. You have to say to them, I hear where you're coming from. They express their opinion. You express your opinion. When somebody gets very, very angry at you and lashes out at you and starts calling you names, that does not mean that they are right. That just means that they know how to scream louder, and that they're just scaring you. And it doesn't mean the person who screams louder is not necessarily the smarter person. So you shouldn't think that either. But I do think that being able to practice having conflict is a very, very, very good thing to do. And part of practicing having conflict means three things. One is pause, relax, take a deep breath. Two is be respectful, hear what the other person's opinion is, give them an opportunity to express their opinion. And three is having an opportunity for you to express your opinion as well. Number one, taking a deep breath and pausing, all of us can do. Number two, being respectful of a person. That takes effort, especially when you're very angry. It's very hard to be respectful because really you just want to scream back at them as well. But being respectful and listening to them and actually listening to them, actively listening to them, allowing them to express their opinion without interrupting them. Let them express their opinion. You will find that once the air goes out of their balloon, they're going to be so much more easy to get along with. And then number three, having the opportunity to express your opinion as well. But expressing your opinion only after you've allowed them respectfully to express their opinion. Now, I know every one of these things is very, 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 very difficult, but they're all very important. I want to add one more thing. It's really important to also recognize that if you're with a person who has a temper and has anger issues, that it's very important to think about choosing your battles. Like, what is really worth fighting about? Not everything is worth getting into this like locking of heads together. Sometimes it's better not to. It's just better to choose your battles and decide which is the most important one that I'm going to argue about. And also not to take it personally, that it could very well be that this person is going through a very difficult time, that right at that time, just something is going on for them. And this happens to all of us, it happens to us when we do our weekends. On the Shabbat weekends, we're all living together. We're together for 36, 48 hours, and people may get upset. And it's always good to allow them their time, pause, let them breathe, give them an opportunity. And then very respectfully, you go over to them and you say, you want to talk about what you're upset about? Because you look like you're upset. Do you want to talk to me about it? Let's talk about it. And then they have an opportunity to express themselves. You have an opportunity to express yourself. And I really do believe that conflict is an opportunity to get closer to the person. I don't think that fleeing from it, running away from the person, is going to give you an opportunity to get closer to somebody. I think having a conversation with the person, that will give you an opportunity to get closer to the person. Okay, so are there comments that we want to make? Is the rabbi here? I don't think my rabbi is here.
Yeah, of course. I'm very attentively listening. I just maybe wanted to ask you to explain, me, maybe others, what is the root of fear of conflict? Is it low self-esteem? Is it people pleasing? What is that? Like, in order for a person to overcome it and be straightforward, where it comes from?
It's such a great question, Rabbi. Why are we so afraid of conflict? Also, I just noticed Steph is here. Steph, I'm saying hi to you. Sorry. I didn't see you before. Suddenly all my faces appeared. So now I'm seeing everybody. So Rabbi, most often fear of conflict comes from what? It's what we talk about all the time. And I bet you everybody here can answer the question. Fear of conflict comes from our past. If in our past we were yelled at and screamed at because we had an opinion, because we voiced an opinion that was our opinion, if that happened to us in our childhood, guess what, Rabbi? Press your button, mute. And that's what's going to happen. You're going to go mute when a conflict happens because you're terrified. So fear of conflict is literally the mute button being turned on because I'm not going there because I am terrified. When I was 5 years old and when I was 6 years old and I watched my parents screaming at each other, I was so scared that maybe they were screaming at each other because of me, that I was the reason of their conflict. I was terrified. Maybe I was terrified because I did something to initiate the conflict. Maybe I spilled some milk and suddenly my mother just lost it and started screaming at me and said, "What's the matter with you? You're so clumsy. You spilled the milk." So of course I'm going to get older. And if I'm going to spill milk or I'm going to do something wrong and someone's going to scream at me, I'm not screaming back because the child in me is terrified of the conflict. But we have to realize that we are adults and that and not only are you entitled to have your opinion, you're obligated to, I am telling you, you're obligated as a person to express your opinion. Expressing your opinion is so important. All it will do is bring you closer to the other person. And it always happens. You do get closer to the other person.
But if it comes from childhood, then a person is full of fear, and this is really irrational. I mean, you can talk to yourself. So the question is, how do you overcome this feeling, or how do you do it by recognizing it, probably, maybe understanding yourself and saying to yourself, listen, this is.
Yeah, it's that. It's definitely self-talk, definitely self-talk. But it's those 3 steps. It's pause, stop, and do the self-talk. Stop and say to yourself, I don't have to be afraid. I don't have to be afraid. 2, I'm going to ask the other person, my compassionate curiosity, like what you did, Rabbi. You weren't afraid. My compassionate curiosity. I'm going to ask the other person. I'm going to say, let's talk about what you're upset about. Explain it to me. Please tell me. I want to be there for you. Explain to me what you're upset about. It's such an opportunity for having an incredible relationship. And if you really listen to the other person and you allow them to talk and you don't interrupt them and you actively listen to them, it's a miracle. It's a miracle. That person, you will watch them, they will change and they will become another person. And then you have the opportunity to express your opinion also. And people are so grateful for having their opinion heard. It doesn't make your relationship worse. It really makes your relationship better. You get closer because you get through it and then you're together. I think for me, for myself, and for the people that I'm close to, I think that they recognize that our relationships get better and better the more we have opportunities to have differences of opinion.
The more we reveal ourselves in an authentic way, in a true way.
Yep, exactly.
Because hiding behind the mask is faking.
Exactly.
And only in conflict you can really reveal yourself, and that creates relationships. Thank you.
It's only through expressing yourself and expressing your conflict and respecting that the other person may have a difference of opinion than you as well. But we're allowed to have differences of opinion. That does not make us bad people. Because I voted for Trump and you voted for Biden doesn't mean that I am a bad person. It just means that we have a difference of opinion. But that doesn't make me a bad. Nothing makes anyone a bad person. Unless they're a child molester, they're not a bad person. Nobody is a bad person. Everybody is doing things because they think it's the right thing to do. And they feel right about it. Nobody does things because they think it's the wrong thing to do. They're doing things because they believe in what they're doing. When I do something, I believe that I'm doing the right thing. I'm not doing it to offend you. So I want an opportunity to say to you, let me tell you what I'm hurting about, what hurt me about what just happened. And it's such a beautiful thing because it actually allows the person to see that we all get hurt. We all have feelings. And until we express it, we don't know, especially, when these young couples get married, all our young couples, Rabbi, I love them all so much, but they're so young, and it takes time to learn, I would love you to have dinner ready for me on the table. Well, if you're not going to tell me that you would love to have dinner ready on the table, how would I know? So it's such an opportunity. Conflict is an opportunity for closeness. So, any comments? Yeah, Connie, do you mind that we're on recording, or we're good?
Oh no, that could be on recording.
Okay.
First of all, I just want to say I really love this topic, and I really love how you're presenting it, because I think that's something that we don't focus on. That's so true as far as like conflicts, like building relationships. People always conceptualize it in terms of like fighting and distance, and I think that's only true if you don't handle it the right way, like as you're saying. And I also just something that I was thinking about as far as like the rabbi asking about what it comes from. I think it's like everything the rabbi mentioned, but also the idea of like maybe if you were a child and you tried to give your input, but nobody listened to you. And no, your voice was not heard. So you might have in your head, like, my voice is not heard. People will not listen to my voice. And so then it's hard to change that rhetoric and to go through that self-talk of then saying, no, my voice does matter. People do want to hear my voice. And I think I agree with you so much, Dr. Faye, that I feel like, you know, by us engaging in a difference of opinion, it actually shows that we care. Like people that I disagree with, that don't matter so much to me, I'd rather walk away, because it's just too stressful to get involved in like anything major. And it's too hard for me to put myself out there in that way and fight against my nature and do that. And so I think it's true. Like it does show a level of wanting to engage in the relationship by like having it out and in the right time. Like obviously the timing has to be right. Sometimes like, you know, the timing is not right and the person is not in the right place, and then you're better off coming back to it. But I just had those few things that I was thinking.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, you're saying it so perfectly, you know, like whether you're repeating it exactly from what I said or whether it's coming from yourself, you're saying it so accurately. If I care about somebody enough, if I love them enough, I will stick around for the conflict. If I don't care about you enough, I'll walk away because you don't really matter that much. But if I love you and I care about you, I'm going to fight it out with you. Not necessarily fight it out, but I'm going to stay there for it. And I personally, my closest relationships are the ones where I allow myself and I allow the other person to disagree with me. I love it. If somebody doesn't disagree with me, I think that they don't really love me. I think that it just doesn't really matter to them. So for me, it's really, in all, honestly, like in all of my relationships, in all of them, people who know me, they know that they can tell me what they want to say. And I listen to it. I love it. I love it. I don't want to say I love conflict, but conflict is really an opportunity for closeness. Any other comments?
But if nobody wants to say anything, no? Okay. But there are some people like I feel that I'm close to, and I mean, family-wise, that I feel like, you know, they don't want to listen to my opinion and they don't want to like, and I don't think the conflicts makes it stronger. I feel like they just scrub things under the rug and leave things like under the bed, and then it just explodes because we don't talk about it. We don't communicate. Like they don't want to hear my opinion because of the mentality, the cultural differences. They don't want to face it because
Yeah.
there's a power struggle.
But so Julie, I agree with you, but that you're talking about that being a cultural thing. That's in the culture that you were brought up in. That there is no way. We have talked about that a lot of times, Rabbi Katzin, about that it's in the culture not expressing your emotion, and that's the reason Julia, you have grown so much because you've been taking these classes since last March. It's over a year. Perm was our anniversary. We pretty much started around that time.
Yeah.
So
I've never felt like I had a problem with expressing my emotions. I think a lot of people know that. I just think I can now express it in a healthy way, in a more communicative way. Yeah.
I have to tell you that's the biggest compliment I could possibly hear, that you're at a point where you can express it in a healthy way. I'm so super impressed, and I'm so happy about it. You know, and it's true. It's what you're saying is really true. You have really learned to express your opinion and conflict in a very healthy way. Listen, it's the closer you are to somebody, the harder it is.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not living with somebody, it's easier to express conflict. But for our young married couples, it's really very difficult because they really love each other. They really don't want to, they don't want to argue with each other. It's very hard because they know that they're, 5 minutes later, they're still together. So how does, let's go there for a minute. How does a married couple actually resolve conflict? What's a married couple supposed to do? I'm looking at this gorgeous couple sitting over here, having their dinner, and I love it. I love it. And I think that watching them go through the journey, it's an amazing thing for me, because I know I was there being married for a week and then being married for a month and then being married for 2 months. And I remember how difficult it is at the very, very beginning. So every time I see a young couple that's married for a month and 2 months and 3 months, I want to go over and just give them a hug and say, you're doing it. You're doing it. You're growing together. And ultimately, these are the couples that end up being together for 10 years, 15 years, and 20 years. And by the time they get there, if they do it respectfully, they're so in love with each other, and they know their trigger points, and they know what it is that gets them upset, and they know what it is that makes them love each other. And that's the beauty of a marriage. That's the beauty, that the relationship grows more and more beautiful, for everything. It's just great. It's just great. I'm so proud of you two. I really am. I look at you over here, and watching you is like looking at a movie for me. You're both so beautiful. You're wonderful. I'm so very proud. I can't describe how proud I am of you. Somebody said to me, an acquaintance of mine today said to me, "You didn't spend perm with your children?" And I'm thinking, how could you say that? I spent perm with my children. Like, my children are the Rage children. And we had the most fantastic, amazing perm. It was just unbelievable. And for those of you that were there, I just loved being with you. Rabbi, we had the most amazing perm. And for those of you that weren't there, that are my children, I miss you. And it was just, Rage children are really my children. It's wonderful. I have so much nachas from you.
It would have been more complete if Rabbi Katzin was there. I thought you were coming, Rabbi Katzin. I was like telling someone, I thought you were coming. And they're like, no, he's not coming.
Son.
It's okay. I got Rabbi Grossman as a substitute. But
Yeah,
of course, he doesn't pale in comparison to
He
you.
is absolutely the best.
He is.
Rabbi Grossman was great. And Rabbi Gelman was
unbelievable.
Oh, Rabbi Gelman too.
Yeah, Rabbi Gelman was absolutely, I'm giving a big shout out to Rabbi Gelman. Havdalah was amazing. His talks, the entire Shabbos, he was just like nonstop. All of us, the whole table. Rabbi, we heard stories that everyone could write a book about each individual story that was told. It was an incredible Purim Shabbat. So it's really great. Okay, so where are we? We're in the conflict stage. Anybody else?
Dr. Faye, that was so beautiful and such an important message for everyone to hear. I mean, definitely, I feel like conflict brings people closer. And I think it's so valuable to, like, some of my best friends, we agree about nothing, like we have nothing that we agree on. And it's so much fun to debate and discuss and just like talk about things. But I wanted to ask you, I mean, I don't know if it's a question, but more of an observation. Like, there's no right answer for a lot of things. Like, everyone's doing the right thing, like you said, right? And it's interesting to me when you have to actually make a conclusion as a couple or as in any relationship, but everyone's right, in their own way. So that's a form of conflict, but it's a form of conflict that like you could discuss forever, but there's clearly like no absolute right. What do you think about those kind of conflicts?
So I think it's totally a matter of respect. It's a matter of recognizing the fact that I'm a person, you're a person, we're two people, and we are both entitled to having a completely different opinion. It does not mean that I'm a bad person. It certainly does not mean that you're a bad person. It just means that we have two completely different opinions on things. And that's fine.
And that's okay until an actual decision has to be made. For example, like I know a lot of, I mean, let's say there's a couple like who has to make a decision about a child or a place to live, or like just anything, right? And there's a concrete, like one person has to kind of get their way maybe, or just like an outcome has to happen. But I see like so many in the world, just like so many cases like that, where both are right. Of course, both are entitled to their opinion. You could debate it forever. Ultimately, you have to choose one.
So usually, like what you're talking about is generally in a marital relationship, right? When something like that happens, where a decision has to be made. I have a decision that
Even like executive, like corporations, you'll have two CEOs or anything. I see it so often.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think very often that if you allow a person the respect of actively listening to what their opinion is, very often, and then you have the opportunity to also give your opinion, one person will end up giving in to the other person and saying, listen, I want you to know that I really feel very strongly about our child going to this particular school. I feel very strongly, but I really love you a lot, and I'm good with it. I'm okay with it. I'm not holding it against you. I'm really okay with our child going to the school that you want our child to go to. And that's usually how conflicts are resolved with married couples, where it's really just the best, because you're both going to stand your ground, hopefully respectfully. One thing I will say that is very, very, very important in a marriage relationship, it's about respect. That once you say something in a marriage relationship, once you raise your voice, once you call the person a name, a derogatory name, that can never be taken back. So for me, like while people are standing under the chuppah and they say Hareyat Mukudeshet, I wish they could add on, I will not ever call you a name, because that's the one thing that I find with my couples, that can never, it just can never be fixed. It hurts. With my couples that suffer from domestic violence, they will say very clearly, I can get over the fact that he hit me. I can get over it. I just can't get over the fact that he keeps calling me a dummy. That hurt. I can't get it out of my head. I really feel like a dummy. He keeps calling me dummy, dummy, dummy. That is in my head. So for that, I really want to say that should be like one of the 10 commandments, not to call your spouse name, because for some reason that is the most hurtful thing in the world. It hurts. It either it brings back things from the childhood, or I don't know what it is about it, but it's almost impossible to repair. So that part, I just want to say that part is really relevant, not disrespecting the other person. So does that answer your question, though, about differences of opinion? That every person is entitled to a difference of opinion. And we missed you this weekend.
I know, I miss you so much. It was such a beautiful.
Yeah, we can't wait for you to come back.
We're definitely coming back.
Don't worry, you'll have your chance. I promise. I guarantee you.
Oh, you guys made such a big impact.
I'm so happy. I'm so, yeah, you look very, very happy.
Yes, thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, so Rabbi, anything else? We're good? Any other comments? Lana, are you there? I love listening.
I'm here and I'm just in awe. I'm like reflecting on the Shabbat and everything you guys just said, and just really how amazing it was. I haven't unmuted because my son didn't go to sleep, but I did want to share how meaningful the Shabbat really was and how special. Like, I'm still thinking about the stories and the experiences and everything. I just feel so blessed, and yeah, I can't wait for us to share it all together again. And unbelievable, really. And this class is so important. It really is, especially for married couples. It's like a different perspective than I've actually heard before. It's very real about, conflicts. I feel like people try to avoid talking about that and kind of making it out to be like it's going to be perfect. And, it's hard and it takes work. And you guys are giving us good guidance on how to get closer together and grow together. And it's so wonderful to have this support.
Yeah. Well, Lana, watching you with your husband was also really like a model of how a couple should be. The respect that you both show for each other is just amazingly incredible. I just loved watching both of you throughout Shabbos, and it was a very long Shabbos. We started very early on Friday, and you were just amazing. Your children will turn out to be amazing children because of the beautiful relationship that you have with your husband. So that's
It makes me so happy to hear this from you. And I have to say, it has so much to do with, being in your home and the holiness that it brings, and kind of what it does to people when they're really with you in your home, and kind of your humbleness, your openness,
very sweet,
transforms the whole atmosphere and brings out the best really in people. I could say that.
I totally agree. I second that.
Yeah, me too. I was saying how like I felt you opened up your house physically and spiritually for us on the chat.
Thank you. But it's really all of you. I just, you literally, you feed, you're saying I feed your soul, but you feed my soul in turn, because watching you and being so inspired by you, it's just an amazing experience, and the openness and the honesty and the love that comes out. And I mean, the Saturday night party was just like the epitome. That was like just so much fun. Rabbi, I have to tell you, we had a magician, and the truth is that he was the worst magician you ever saw in your life. And we created such an incredible Kiddush Hashem, because he walked away thinking he was a superstar. We laughed at his jokes, and the guy was not Jewish, and we created such a Kiddush Hashem. Like, every time we laughed and we applauded, I saw he was like looking at himself thinking, wow, nobody has ever applauded me in my life. You guys really think I'm good? So it was just an amazing, and it was all of your children, Rabbi. It was all the Ragers. They sat there, and really, believe me, we were all ready to leave after 30 seconds because he was awful. But we didn't let him know. He thinks he was great. So
the bunny made it all worth it. The bunny.
I knew that the bunny was going to come out at some point, but I had no, like, when, we were sitting there for a very long time before that little rabbit came out. So it was a wonderful time. It was really great. All right. Thank you, Rabbi Ketzin, for giving us all. No, Rabbi, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to get close to each other and to meet each other. And this is all because of you. We're all so grateful to you, the teachers and the students, all of us.
Dr. Faye, your Jewish home resembles the first Jewish home of Avram and Sarah. So that's why the holiness really in the Jewish home. And the source of holiness of Beis HaMikdash and everything followed until today. So that's why people come and they feel this inspiration.
Thank you, Rabbi. I look forward to my home being our home for a very, very, very long time.
Important topic. The topic is, it's still, I think that we're going to continue thinking about it, and probably practice makes it perfect.
Yep. It's pause, breathe, relax, take it easy. Then
not attacking.
Not attacking.
And right. Right.
And it's compassionate curiosity, it's called, Rabbi CC, compassionate curiosity. Just asking, what's bothering you? What's going on? The same way you asked Rocco. And who are you? And who are you? Compassionate curiosity.
Yeah, just in other words, you make that judgmental statement. I see that, that's going on, or I notice something. Yeah, just I'm curious. Yeah, asking person to explain.
Exactly.
Not attacking. So that's
not attacking. Compassionate curiosity. By the way, tell me what's going on. Why do you look so upset? What's happening? What are you doing now? Compassionate curiosity, and actively listening, giving the person a chance to talk without interrupting them. It's a very big deal. Very hard to do, but it can be done.
One of the greatest qualities is in Gemara, in Talmud, the rabbis say, Ne'elavim v'lo ma'alevim, when person is offended or attacked, and he's not attacking, he's not offending back.
Right. Yep.
If it's not too late, I actually have a question I wanted to ask.
Yeah, please.
What if it's sort of the opposite way, where let's say you're dealing with somebody that isn't that doesn't like to have conflict so much, but they can't take criticism very well, and you feel not so much that it's a difference of opinion, but let's say you're very, you know, it's very obvious that the person may be misguided or making a mistake, and when you notify them and speak to them, they take it as criticism and they can't take it very well, so they don't like to be wrong. So no matter what your approach is, because you are notifying them that their outlook was incorrect or maybe a little misguided or misconstrued, they take it negatively, and that's what creates the conflict. So you're in a sort of, you're in a pickle about if you should say something or not, because you're afraid that they'll always feel like they're always wrong.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's really, really a great question. So my answer to that, if we were having a conversation, which we're having, is that I think for that moment, as it's happening, for this particular person, I would leave it alone for that moment, because in that moment, they're feeling very attacked. At that moment, they're not feeling worthy of responding. They're afraid. And that fear, I'm sure, comes from something that happened in their childhood.
It
So for me, I would say not to take it on at that moment. You've already said your piece. You've said whatever it is that you want to say. Leave it alone. Tell the person that you love them. Let them know that you love them. And tell them that if I'm saying something in a way that's disrespectful to you, I know it's a very hard thing to do, but it's the way it works. If I'm saying something to you in a way that's disrespectful, I apologize for being disrespectful. I'm just trying to voice my opinion, but I'm not saying that you're a bad person. I promise. I don't think you're a bad person. I'm just trying to give over my opinion to you, and I know that it's hurting you. So let's just leave it alone. Do you mind if we bring it up at another time? And they'll probably let you bring it up at another time. As a matter of fact, they'll probably bring it up on their own at another time when they're not feeling attacked. But at that particular moment, Al, they're feeling attacked. So it's better to just, you've said your piece, and back off and say, I know I hurt you. I'm sorry that I hurt you, but I really just wanted to give you my opinion.
So it doesn't start as a conflict, and I agree with you 100%. So one thing I'm curious about is, if it doesn't start as a conflict, but let's say you're just having a normal conversation, and your partner or friend is telling you that about their day, and they did something, and they had an encounter with somebody or a conversation with somebody, and they may have acted in a way where they might have been a little rude or defensive or attacked, and they don't know it, and you are now in a conflict of, do you notify this person that they may have made a mistake, or do you not say anything at all? Because if you say something to them, they'll get offended, and they'll then have conflict with you that you're attacking them, and then it becomes a conflict. Versus if you say nothing at all, then they will continue to lead a life where they may be looking at this approach in an incorrect way.
Right. So your question is exactly what this class is addressing. So you're saying, oh, you know what, Dr. Faye, I'd rather walk away from this because this person is they're going to take it so badly. It's not worth it for me to voice my opinion.
They don't like being told they're wrong, essentially.
They don't like being told that they're wrong, Dr. Faye. So I'm not going to say anything. No, the answer is no, because that will not make you closer to the person. It's this fact that the person is upset. If you could get through and have a conversation, imagine how close you're going to be to that person. Walking away from it and saying, I'm afraid to argue with her, and I'm afraid to tell her or him how I feel, because I know they're going to freak out. I know they're going to be offended. I know they're not going to talk to me for the next 3 days. I know we're going to, that is only going to make your relationship more distant. And if you love the person enough, you want to be closer to the person. So you said what you wanted to say. You can then say to the person, I just want you to say, no, that everything I've said is purely out of love. I really love you. It's not because I love you and I want to be closer to you. Now, they may not hear you at that moment, because at that moment, they're all steamed up. At that moment, they're angry. It's the moment. It's in the moment. It's the hot moment. Leave it alone. And you can get back to it at another time. But ignoring it and letting it just happen, all that's going to do is create a gigantic wedge between the two of you. And ultimately it's scary to do that, because you're going to look for love in all the wrong places. That's it's a scary thing to do in a relationship, to avoid conflict. Embracing conflict is the way to go. It just is.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That was such a good and important question. Like, I actually didn't realize I had that question too, but I guess thank you for bringing it up. And can I ask like a follow-up? Can I ask a follow-up on that? Is it better to give someone your opinion in like a direct way, or like a super nice way where they may or may not realize like you're giving their, like, let's say you do have a something to say, like but it's constructive and it's for their own benefit, and you truly like you said, it's from the heart, it's because you love them. You would never, like, something that you've noticed, that would help them if they noticed it too. Is it usually better to tell a person like how you see it, or like in such a nice way that like you're not really sure? Me and my husband actually were having a debate or conversation exactly about that. So I'm like, whoa, this is the perfect person to ask.
I'm all about talking nicely to each other. That if there's a way to deliver the message in a nice way instead of in a critical way, you're a winner. If you have it in you that you could bring it up and say something in a positive way and come from positive, it's much better than coming from a negative place.
So is being blunt always being mean?
It's not being mean. Being blunt is, let's just call it, not as sensitive as being able to say something in a way that's loving. It's kind of like, let's give the example of this little kid spilling milk. You were a little kid, you spilled milk, your parents yelled at you, your mother, look what you just did, you ruined the rug, you ruined my chair, you ruined the carpet, you ruined everything. Now imagine that mother, instead of yelling at her child because she lost it, the carpet is ruined, the chair is ruined, her dress is ruined, everything is ruined. If instead of that, the mother embraces the child and says, can you imagine a mother actually doing this, saying, I know you did this by accident, darling. I really love you. Don't feel bad. It's fine. It's just a chair. It's fine. It's just my dress. It's fine. Now, the milk is already spilled, right? So why go to that place of demeaning the child, humiliating the child, and terrifying the child? So in the same vein, when a partner is giving the other partner a critique or a criticism and wanting to say, I got to tell you, the way you dress, you look like a slob. You say it like that, and what does a person feel like? They feel like a slob, But if you say it in a way where, it's done in, I love you so much. You have such wonderful traits about you. I'm so happy that I'm married to you. Maybe we could fix you up a little bit. Maybe you could start brushing your teeth, or maybe you could start putting on deodorant or something. But to come from a place that is not all about how bad they are, to come from a place of love and compassion. I really love you. And blah, 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 whatever it may be. I used the example because I didn't want to use anything harder, but it's with any example. As long as you come from a place of love and not from a place of, I know better, I'm smarter, I'm prettier, I'm smarter, that's not going to work. No, but they didn't marry you so that you should be their biggest critique. They married you because they love you. They married you because you loved them back. And that's really what they want. They want your love. It didn't change. Just because you're married 5 years does not make them change their opinion of what they want from you. They married you because you loved them. You showed them love. Everybody wants to be loved. 5 years later, 10 years later, everybody wants love. So you really have to think very strong about how you want to deliver your criticism. because they didn't marry you because you're their teacher. They didn't marry you because they said to themselves, oh, I want to marry that person. They'll tell me everything that's wrong with me. Nobody gets married for the reason of, oh, that person's perfect for me. They'll tell me, they'll fix me. Nobody wants to be fixed. Everybody wants to be loved. And on that note, I love you all. I do. I do. And I'm always here for you. Always, always, always. Okay, I will see you all next week. And whoever I see on Shabbat, I can't wait. I look forward.